Hi guys, and welcome to what is going to be the final build video of the ICM T-34 76 Soviet tank. As you can see, there's still a few little bits to clean up on this, and I've still got to add a bit of weathering. I've got this brace in here which was holding the driver's hatch open, which once I've finished with the final dusting of pigments I will remove. We've got the breech fitted to the gun, which interestingly actually makes the cannon sit up like so, but it will actually sit level. So that's something to watch out for with the breech fitted inside. It does add that extra little bit of weight and tends to pull the gun up. So if you're intending to display this model in a diorama, that's something to consider. So what's left to do? As you can see there, I have super glued the tracks to the tops of the road wheels. I'm not hugely impressed with the rubber tracks because while they've glued okay and they look okay, as you can see, they don't lay over the road wheels exactly how they should. Or if you look at T-34s, if you look at pictures of T-34s online, you'll see with the way that the track links work, they lay over the road wheels in a certain way, which I suspect you could really only replicate with individual link tracks or link and length if they're molded to the correct shape. But it's not bad. It's, you know, for a rubber track, it's not bad. I'm quite pleased with that. The weathering, as mentioned before, it is very over the top. I'm aware of that. I've added the roll at the back with a little bit of weathering with a brown oil. That's going to get a dusting. And then we've got the saw on this side. We've got the tow cables, which aren't the best in the world, but they don't look too bad. That's had a coat of NATO black and then a dry brushing in gunmetal. And the tracks, spare tracks, have likewise NATO black and a brushing of gunmetal. And I've added a mesh to the vents at the back there, which is a piece of material from an old pair of tights that I nabbed ages ago and cut up to use as a paint strainer. So it's a piece of material from that, which I had intended to actually spray green and didn't get around to, but I quite like the look of that, to be honest. I think it looks okay, and it certainly looks better than the moulded in detail that was there. And then also on this side we've got the two shovels. Now the kit instructions don't show these shovels included, so I just kind of stuck them on at the side thinking it'll look all right there. And there's a couple of little bits I haven't stuck on for the antenna and the light because frankly the headlight I didn't like the look of at all. It had a moulded front lens rather than a clear piece. I just didn't like the look of it, so I've left them off and I'm quite happy with that. And then we've got the exhaust tips with a bit of black to emulate the Sutton, a bit of a rust colour to obviously to emulate the rust, but there's not much of that showing. All that's left to do now is I want to give the underside of the tracks a heavier dry brush in a gunmetal, and then I'm going to get some pigment, some light pigment. I think dry earth, because it's the only one I've got. I'd go for something like Europe dust if I had it, but I don't. So dry earth, and I'm just going to give everything a kind of a light dusting over, and then I'm going to mist some isopropyl alcohol through the airbrush over the whole thing as a fixative, and that'll be done. So we're back in a moment with that. Well, here's the completed model, and it's sort of looking beat up and dusty as the intention of the build was. The overall look that I was going for those of you who have seen the Russian film White Tiger, which is very, very good, and I recommend you watch it, incidentally, if you haven't seen it. But for those of you who've seen the film White Tiger, throughout the film, you don't really get any sort of wet, horrible, rainy, caked in mud scenes. It's always sort of dry and generally sunny, occasionally misty, but that leaves all of the tanks in the movie sort of very dusty. It's like a dry earth dust rather than caked in mud with big claggy lumps of mud all over them, as you typically see heavily weathered tanks. And I quite liked that look, and it's not something you see often. So this is the reason I wanted to go for that particular look. So using a dry mud pigment, just dusted on, that's what I've done there. I've used some Citadel metallic, I forget which one off the top of my head, just to add a little bit more dry brushing to the tracks, just to because you notice on T-34 track links you'll get noticeable wear, the metallic sort of lips and edges. So I've done a bit more dry brushing on that to make that more noticeable. And then using the pigment, I've liberally dusted that everywhere and given it a good sort of scrub about with the brush, and then tapped it on in some places, and just generally tried to dust it all over the entire model, sort of more heavily on the road wheels and the tracks, but generally all over the model, including the upper hull. And I then gave that a very, very fine misting of isopropyl alcohol through the airbrush. Dialed that down to about 10 psi and just misted IPA all over the model to help lock that in. It won't set solid. I know that some of the pigment will brush away if it's handled a lot, but that will help lock it in a little bit. So that's where we're at that, and that's this model completed. I'm happy with that. So that's where we are. So there you go. It's I'm quite pleased with this, because this is my second 35th scale model tank that I've built. The first one being the old Tamiya Panther, which is commonly cited as having various sort of accuracy issues and one thing or another. It built up into an okay kit, and it was a good first kit for me to practice on, being very cheap and all. But I was never really happy with that one. So I wanted to go for something a bit more weathered the next time around, and the T-34 was an ideal subject for that, because it's very rare you see these in nice, pristine, just fresh from the factory condition, and even when they were fresh from the factory, they're sort of very rough around the edges, and it made an ideal candidate for this sort of rough and beat up and dusty looking tank. So as I said, I'm very pleased with that overall. So there you go, there's the finished model. I hope you enjoyed this build series, and for the next one we're going back to something more familiar for me, and because I feel like it's an age since I've done any, we're going to go with a nice shiny car, but at the same time I do have a review to do on a paint range that I've gotten for review, and I will be testing some of those paints probably on a little Airfix Spitfire kit. So I don't know if that will be happening before or after I start the car build. The car I'm really excited about doing, and it's kind of got a little crossover with my love of coffee. So a little hint for you there. And I'm quite excited about doing it. It's a really nice little car, and it took me a while to get a hold of a kit, so yes, I'm really excited about doing it. So tune in for that one. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this build series, and I hope you like the finished model. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Okay, thank you, and bye bye guys.